Okay, so since we've talked about the importance of equity and creating equity in our advanced courses, we've also talked about the teacher's role in AP Capstone. Let's look more into how do we design uh, lessons and impactful learning in our classroom. So every great classroom is built by design. It's not chance. So effective teaching is not an accident. It's a result of intention. And so what we want to do is make sure that we are using our lesson plans as blueprint that actually turns curriculum into engaging and meaningful activities that support students and creates an impactful learning environment for all. So lesson plans, a well designed lesson plan is a foundation for everything you do. It provides clarity, confidence, and consistency. So, in this course, especially for Capstone, because teachers are basically more like project managers, it's essential for you guys to stay organized, to keep the class on track um, with teaching goals and objectives, to evaluate performance help students assess you assess your students and help students inform students on the things that they need to adjust on or revise. It ensures continuity, allows basically anybody who needs to step in, maybe a substitute or a teammate, to seamlessly continue with the learning journey. And it increases effectiveness, enables easy integration to new ideas, technology, and resources, and keeps learning dynamic. So, when you're planning lessons, there are three questions that you should always ask. What am I teaching? So, we're considering the objectives, the standards, the content, uh, or the skills in this case. How am I going to teach it? The activities, the strategies, the materials, and how will I assess it? So, is it going to be a formative or a summative check? So, every lesson has a beginning, middle, and end. And regardless of the subject or your grade level, this is a natural progression of learning. So, in the beginning, you are introducing the goals and the standards of learning. In the middle, you're engaging students using modeling, guided practice, active strategies to build understanding. And this is where the core work happens. This is the I do, we do, you do. And then the end is assessing and checking for understanding and making sure that what you taught students have actually understood. So it's always good to start with the destination in mind. Um, it's always it's the best practice to backwards design. So in AP Capstone, depending on which course you're teaching, whether it's AP Seminar and you're looking to have students do their performance task one, or you're looking at the first three sections of the paper in AP Research, we're looking at what are the desired results for the student. So we're looking at that. So then once we've decided what are the things that we expect students to be able to do, then we decide how will students demonstrate that. How do we create a performance assessment that we can actually see if students are capable of doing it? And then how do we design activities that align with getting students to the end goal? So we go from broad to specific. So when we're planning things, we're looking at learning objectives. So if we're looking at learning objectives, maybe we're trying to figure out how do students decide that a source is credible? How do we, or how do we make sure a student understands how to synthesize perspectives, right? And then you have basically your demonstrated learning. The student will analyze how authors use of bias shapes tone in a nonfiction essay by whatever your DOL is, right? So the thing about AP Capstone in any course is that you know who is in your room, that you understand what each student needs. So if you have students with IEPs or 504s, do they need extra time? Do they need a peer? Do they need uh, chunk text, whatever it is they need, make sure that you are able to meet those students' needs accordingly. If you need support, not sure about best practices, maybe communicate with other teachers, see what works for those students when it comes to their learning. Consider those things. If you have students with different learning styles, if they are audio, visual, or kinesthetic learners, those are have learning in different multiple modalities. Maybe you have some students who use an audio text. Maybe you have some students who do outlines. Maybe you have some students who do mind maps instead of outlines. Whatever it is, make sure that you are able to figure out what is the best way for a student to actually grasp the concept. And of course, we need technology integration because students in this course are going to have to be able to find different types of resources, and also they have to utilize different types of resources. And you will see that especially in AP Seminar, you have different types of stimulus sources. You have art, you have music, you have performances, you have speeches, you have all kinds of things. You have data sets, all these things that students have to be able to analyze and evaluate. And so exposure to different types of material is essential, and being able to navigate technology is essential as well, as that's how they submit their resources. So, mastering the craft. Because AP Capstone is skills based, it is not essential for teachers to understand every or be experts in every topic a student presents or every subject a student wants to talk about. But it is essential for teachers to fully understand the expectations of the course. What is it that students need to have accomplished, need to fully understand by the end of the year? Okay. And what is it that we need to make sure that we are teaching our students in order to make sure they get to that point by the time the assessments come around. And then think about, again, what are the needs of the students in your classroom? Do you have English language learners? Do you have deaf students? Do you have students with some learning disabilities? Whatever it is, we need to figure out the needs of those students and how do we meet those to ensure that they all get what they need in order to be successful. And you have to be intentional with those things, as one size fits all is not going to work in this model, especially since you have both of these courses are student led and inquiry. So, what a student is interested in and how a student actually understands that is going to be vastly different. So, consider that. And so that requires some flexibility and some adaptability and being able to pivot. So the best way to do that is to fully understand what the expectations are, what how a student can actually demonstrate that using different topics or different research styles or different methods. And so being able to fully understand what the expectations are, not necessarily the content, but knowing the skills and understanding the expectations by fully understanding the rubric, looking at exemplars, uh, fully understanding the process of these things is what's essential to actually meet your students' needs. So, what are some ways we can differentiate for our students? So, looking at the content, what must the student learn? And maybe we need to adjust the complexity of that. And you can do things like that with some of the text we have. We can lower the lexile. We can change or make sure that our students understand the vocabulary. Um, we can create supports to help with learning gaps. Maybe it's templates, maybe those kind of things. Um, process. How do students make sense of the content? So again, how do they engage with the material? Maybe they do it with a partner. Maybe they use audio. Maybe they use AI in an approved way to make sure that they understand the concepts. Uh, how do they demonstrate the learning? What if we have a student whose final academic project requires a model? What if we have a student who creates a song? What if we have a student who is uh, decided that they want to talk about a topic that is not typical for academic research, but it is important? These are things that we should consider and be able to adapt to um, allow students to demonstrate their learning. So here's some examples. So let's say we were trying to work with students in a class and we're looking at some skill sets. And this is something that you should do as far as the workshops. So the workshops that I've designed for both AP Research and AP Seminar basically have learning centers for each section of the rubric. So students would go in with their drafts and they would work as a group to edit and revise per the exemplars, per the expectations of the rubric. And I've created checklists. And so the peers can go ahead and give feedback, and they have questions, guiding questions based on the rubric as well. Does the student have this? Does the student have this? Yes or no? What can a student do to improve? And that gives students the understanding of what the expectations are, but also getting feedback that they can apply to improve their work. So there are some things that you should consider when creating these lessons. How do we know if a lesson is truly effective? So let's look at that. Is the lesson student centered? Is the lesson relevant? Does it create opportunities for insightful thinking? And is it universal? Is it something that will encourage human curiosity and motivate students regardless of grade level or content? So, how do you apply it? When you're lesson planning, use the checklist to sift through potential activities, create your lessons before you teach. If you see a lot of notes in your checklist, it may mean that you need to tweak or replace the lesson. If um, after you teach the lesson, go ahead and see what the results are, and then if see why it may or may or not work, and then you have to diagnose those issues and make objective improvements for next time. And if it does well, carry on. So keep in mind, especially for AP Capstone, your lesson plan is not something that is rigid. It's not something that is scripted. It's a it's something that needs to be authentic and adaptable. Uh, you need to build something that works for you and your students and be able to change where change is needed. Keep in mind this student-led class, so that is also going to mean there's a lot of adaptability. Topics may come up that you weren't expecting, but if they are applicable to the skills that you are teaching, you need to be able to adapt and be able to engage students where they are and what they're interested in. And so that will create productive learning spaces where your students will thrive. All right. Thank you and good luck.